In this video, I'm going to build this amazing shop vac cart. Now, some of you might be thinking, wait, don't you already have a shop vac cart? I'm pretty sure I bought your plans. Well, yes. Yes, I do. But I took what I learned from my old shop vac cart and added some new technology and created a version that's even better. So let's get to building. So to get started, I'm gonna cut my parts out of this scrap plywood. Typically when I start a project, I'm setting out my centipede work holder and cutting a full sheet of plywood. But for this project, I just happen to have these larger chunks left over from a previous project that I get to use to make this cart. If that's not the case for you, this project takes just over half a sheet of 3/4 inch plywood. And even if you don't have this particular model vacuum, this cart should work with any smaller size shop vac. For this cart, I wanted to keep it as minimal as possible and make the footprint as small as I could. I decided to go with a basic box design with two sides, a top and a bottom, and some stretchers to keep it from racking. All of this can be cut pretty easily at the table saw, and one thing I make sure to do is to rip off the factory edge to make all my edges clean and crisp. There are 8 pieces to the basic cart, and once all those are cut to final length and width, I can focus on the top of the cart. Another thing I wanted to change about my old cart was where the bucket was located. In this new design, I wanted to sink the bucket into the cart by cutting a hole in the top. And so to figure out how big the hole needed to be, I just did some good old-fashioned trial and error using my router and a trammel until I got a hole that was just the right size so that the bucket slipped through and rested on the edge like this. Once I got the fit right, I had a nice template that I could use to lay out the hole on the cart top. All right, so now I've got a little bit of a problem to solve. I've got this circle and I need to work out where the center of that circle is so that I can drop on my router trammel and cut this out. And the quickest way to do that is to just use a square. All right, so to do this, I'm gonna take my square and I'm gonna put the point of the square right on the edge of the circle. And I'm gonna draw 2 lines where the edge of the square meets the edge of the circle on this side. And then do the same thing on this side. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick another point on the circle, and I like to just pick this point that I just made here. So again, point touching the edge of the circle and make another line here and another line there. All right, so now I'm going to take my straight edge here, line up these 2 points, line up these 2 points. Just like this. And that is the center of your circle. To cut this out, I'm going to use my trim router with a plunge base and a trammel attached. Since I want to keep the outside of the circle and not the inside piece, this is one of the only options that I have. After locating the center, I use a 1/4 inch drill bit to make a place for my pivot pin to go. I then attach some scrap MDF to the bottom using 2-sided tape. This is going to elevate the workpiece so that my router bit doesn't cut into my bench. Then I clamp everything down securely and drill the center hole down into the scrap. And then I can just tap in my pivot pin, which is just a 1/4 inch steel pin. Then I just drop the trammel onto the pivot pin at the hole location that lines up the bit with the inside of the circle that I drew. Once I'm happy with the path of the bit, I get to cutting. I'm plunging down about a 1/4 inch at a time so that 3 passes will cut completely through. The main thing here is just to take it slow so that the cut that I'm making is clean. And after a quick vacuum, I've got a brand new hole. Man, that didn't sound right. After a quick test fit to ensure that I didn't screw up my measurements, it's time to assemble the cart. Assembling this cart is going to be really easy. I decided to go with simple joinery here because this is just a shop project. Pocket screws would have been too visible on the outside of the cart, and dominoes just seemed like overkill, so I opted for countersunk screws. I'm not trying to win a beauty contest here, I'm just trying to get this thing assembled. And it also gives me an excuse to use my favorite countersink drill bit. I love this thing. Now that I have the basic box together, I'm going to add some stretchers to the top and bottom. These are here just to keep the cart from racking and to keep the vacuum from falling out of the cart. These just get screwed in from the sides as well. And after that, I can just slap some 3-inch casters on this bad boy and I've got myself a cart. Now I can just drop my vacuum in and then drop the bucket in to make sure that the two fit well with no interference. All right, with the basic cart complete, it's time to add some accessories. One thing my old cart didn't have was a hose reel, and so to add one of those, I cut a curve into a small piece of ply and sanded it smooth. This is going to add to the overall width of the cart, but it's going to be worth it in the end to have a place to hang the hose. And this just goes together with screws also. I laid out where I wanted it to go, and then I used two-sided tape to attach it to the cart so that I could screw it on from the inside. While I'm at it, I also want to add a couple more holes to the top so that I can drop in some vacuum accessories. I bored these holes with a Forstner bit, and when you drill with a Forstner bit, make sure to back up the cut on the underside because these bits will cause major tear out when they break through. A small scrap of ply and strong two-sided tape will do the job. I'll leave links to the tape that I use the most along with the other tools in this video down in the description below. You can see here that I made the cart a little wider than my vacuum so that I could fit the wand down the back of the cart. And I can use this other hole for brush attachments. Now the only thing left to do is to connect the Cyclone to the vacuum. The Cyclone I'm using is the new Dust Deputy 2.5 from Oneida Air Systems, the sponsor of this video. I've been investing in Oneida products throughout my shop for years, and I was super excited when they reached out to me to try the new Dust Deputy. This one delivers 2 times more airflow than the old Dust Deputy or the other lid-style separators that you can get at the big box store. It has a translucent lid and bin so that you can see how full it is, and all components are anti-static and vacuum pressure rated so that they won't shock you or collapse under pressure. And the flange on the bottom is the same as the old Cyclone, so it's completely backwards compatible with the old system. And because I want to deliver some value to my viewers, Oneida and I are teaming up to give away 3 Dust Deputy 2.5 Deluxe kits. Keep watching to the end of the video for details about how to enter for a chance to be one of the lucky winners. To make the connection, I need to use this hose to go from the vac to the top of the Cyclone. And to keep it in place, I made this bracket that's going to hold the hose so it doesn't flop around. Depending on the diameter of your vacuum inlet and hose, you may need to use some adapters to make everything fit, and these adapters are available from Oneida as well. The other end of the hose slides into the top of the Cyclone with a nice friction fit. All I have to do now is attach the vacuum hose using another rubber hose collar, and I can finally try out my new system. Like I said earlier, this vacuum delivers some good power given its size. You can see how much the hose and Cyclone flex when I put my hand over the end of the hose. So if I stopped right here, this system would work great, but there is one more upgrade that I'd like to make based on something I did with my old shop vac cart. So I really like the use of 2-inch PVC to connect the vacuum to the Cyclone. But it was a bit cumbersome to deal with because when it came to emptying the bucket, I didn't have a place to set the Cyclone or the lid, and the pipe would often fall over. This time around, I have a solve for that. After cutting some PVC to length, I began by connecting it to the vacuum inlet adapter using this rubber hose cuff. From there, I ran it into the bracket on the front of the cart, and I cemented a connector there before continuing on to the top of the Cyclone and making a connection there. Now, when I want to empty this bucket, all I have to do is pop the top and swivel it out of the way. Everything hangs neatly while I dump the contents, and when I return, everything pops back into place. Mind blown. Okay, so with everything assembled, it's time to take her out for her maiden voyage around the shop. As I said before, I'm really impressed with the abilities of this vacuum to suck up dust and debris around the shop. And with the 12 amp hour battery, it'll run for 30 to 45 minutes depending on the power setting that I choose, and that's plenty of run time for any task that I'm going to do around the shop. The cart also has a lower center of gravity, so even if I pull it around the shop by the hose, it follows me well and it doesn't tip over. And the new Cyclone picks up that dust and debris no problem. So far, I haven't found anything that my old vac cart could do that this new one couldn't handle. All right, so let's see what made it into the bucket. We've got some leaves, a Paw Patrol Band-Aid, a washer, a Cheerio. Oh, nah, save that for later.